Welcome to the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast. I'm your host, Trey.
And I am McKendrick.
And in this episode of the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast, we're going to do a recap of our recent trip to NARBC Arlington.
Arlington, Texas. Yeah, Trey has on the shirt.
I'm repping the shirt, yeah. So,
good stuff.
Yeah, so we're gonna take you behind the scenes of our travel to and from NARBC Arlington. This is episode 17 of the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast.
Ooh, 17 in.
We
coming in on 20. Yeah. Coming in hot.
Yeah. So we just got back. This is now we're recording on what day is it? Tuesday. So we left on Thursday, came back on Monday night.
Yeah.
So we'll take you kind of play by play here through the events. McKendrick and I kind of went separate ways on this adventure, this misadventure.
So
for the first time we tried, I guess not really the first time, because the first show at Tinley,
the very first one
show. I drove and you flew.
Well, yeah, I was still working.
You were still working,
corporate America, right? So I didn't have the time off or whatever it was. So,
this was our first time as running the business full time, where we were separated in the car journey, right. So I drove, McKendrick flew again on this, and we both encountered some obstacles along the way. So I guess we'll start talking about that. So I don't know, you want to go?
No, just first shout out to Corey. Coming out to support us in this venture.
If you've seen us at Tinley or Arlington the last two shows, Corey is with us. She is a coffee roaster that actually works for another roasting company.
That we shall not name.
For compliance reasons. No, we're all cool. Like we're very different markets, very different. And so I love that we have the opportunity to collaborate with her. She's very, very knowledgeable about coffee. And so she comes along to the show. She's also a reptile person.
Yeah.
So she comes along to the
perfect fit.
Yeah, she comes along to the shows with us. So if you see us at an NARBC show, you'll likely see Corey with us. Say hey. She loves talking reptiles, even though she might be busy making coffee.
That's right.
If you're going to talk reptiles, don't talk to McKendrick. Talk to Corey.
Talk to Corey, please.
So,
she's definitely a big help. So shout out to her. And with her coming, that kind of introduced the complexity of travel.
Fair point. Yep.
This go around. So because
and the reason for that is because we take the van. And that sounds sketch. Okay, so let me clarify. We take a marked coffee delivery van.
We own a coffee delivery van that we use locally here in Charleston, but it only has 2 seats. 2 seats.
So if we bring a third person, then
they'll be in for a very long ride in the back of that van
without air conditioning and so I think there's some legal issues with doing that. So so that introduces some obstacles. At Tinley, you drove your car separately,
right?
But this time we tried flying.
Yeah. Well, I found a pretty reasonable flight ticket. So I guess that's where kind of the journey begins, right? So we, waited, decided that it would be just economically more reasonable based on the flight cost that I was able to find.
Versus like hotel and like gas.
Right.
Like we had to drive a separate car.
So, I found a round trip ticket from Charleston all the way to Arlington, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport for $160. And
the airport is like 10-15 minutes from the show.
Yeah, like 15 minutes from the
really
from the
easy,
show. So easy in, easy
Uber
out.
Ride into the show.
So I sent my luggage in the van, so I didn't have to pay for any luggage, which made it even better. So really, just travel with my backpack, and that turned out to be perfect.
Would you like to name the airline that you flew to set the stage for people of what's to come? Or should we just let it rhyme? Does anything rhyme with that word?
Just beer it.
Beer it?
We're going to
beer it. Okay.
Beer it.
So yeah. The airline that rhymes with Spirit, it's Spirit. Okay, everyone knows Spirit, it's Spirit.
Yeah.
Like,
so this was my first time ever traveling Spirit, and it was, kind of expected. Spirit doesn't necessarily have the best reputation. They always talk about how inexpensive the seats are.
I think they're pretty transparent.
They are. Like, you're gonna get what you get. And that is the truth. So leaving Charleston wasn't that bad, other than the seats are kind of like folding chairs. Very little cushion. There's no platform, or the platform in front of you is so tiny that you can barely put your phone on it, much less snacks or a drink. Yeah. Oh, they don't give you snacks and a drink.
Right. Really, so that no problem. So it eliminates the problem. Yeah.
They also don't have like the little pouches behind the seat where you can put like your
magazines or whatever.
No, they got like bungee straps.
Did they really?
Yes, they really did.
I've never flown Spirit. So
I strapped my water bottle to it. I was strapped. I was like, okay, I can strap my water bottle. Yeah. So, but overall flight from Charleston into, so I had a layover. I had to go to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
So
some of these flights, when we were looking at them, were just insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like we were able to find. I think it still was a long flight. Like in domestic air travel, I was expecting it to be, from Charleston to Dallas, I don't know. And, okay, if you can't land a direct flight, maybe 6 hours of travel time or something, right?
Right.
Like you fly, layover for an hour or two, fly to Dallas.
Yeah, but because Spirit has they have a limited amount of flight options. You just have to take what's available, because if you miss it or if it doesn't happen, you're waiting until the next day.
Yeah, well,
it's not like a Delta or an American Airlines.
There were flights that we were looking at that were 24-hour, 36-hour flights from Charleston to Dallas.
Yeah, it was
which
crazy.
Is longer than to drive. Which, I mean, I get maybe it's longer to fly than to drive from Charleston to Atlanta, which is a 4-hour drive by the time you get to the airport and everything. But 24 hours
that's
on
insane.
A flight. It's crazy.
Insane.
So.
But
yours wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but the layover was the worst part going, right? So the flight left here probably around noon on Thursday, and ended up having a pretty significant layover in Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. So here to Fort Lauderdale was like an hour and a half. So 12:30, I was there by 2, and my flight didn't leave out of there until like 6:30, 7 o'clock that night.
Mm-hmm. So you were hanging out,
Fort Lauderdale,
But you knew that, right? I mean, that was per the ticket. I mean, Correct. It was inconvenient, but at least you planned for that.
Correct. The only unplanned part was the passing thunderstorms that happened in the evening. So we ended up sitting, after we actually boarded, the storm rolled in, and we ended up sitting on the tarmac in the plane for another hour and a half before flight.
Yeah,
which was crazy.
It added an hour and a half to an already
like 4 or 5 hour layover. Yeah. So that made it very
plus
long.
The 2 flights. So it was that was a long day. So you left on Thursday and arrived on Thursday.
Correct.
We'll start with my journey as well, and then we'll talk about your first night in Dallas area. So we left earlier. We met you at the office because you had to drop off your suitcase. So we left the Charleston area at around 7:30, 8 o'clock on Thursday morning. And our drive up was pretty uneventful. I mean, it's for those that have ever traveled that route. Once you get on 20, so we went 26 up to Columbia, South Carolina, and then 20 right up into Dallas.
So 20. So out of Charleston, taking 26 is about an hour.
It's about an hour and a half to get to Columbia,
right? And to get to
of the 17-hour drive, it took us about 17 hours over 2 days. An hour and a half was not on 20.
Maybe 2. Hour and 45. So an hour and a half to Columbia. You get on 20.
Oh, yeah, and then the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, the last 15 minutes.
Once you get into Dallas, yeah. So other than that, it was 15 and a half hours on I-20, which, I mean, it goes both ways. It's uneventful, which when you're talking about a 17-hour drive is pretty nice, but it's boring. Like, I one of the things that I didn't realize was that from Charleston, South Carolina, where we are, Charleston, like the coast, like the city of Charleston is pretty coastal. You get some differing terrain and things like that with the coastal environment. But we're kind of in the pine forests of the low country. We're about 30 minutes off the coast. From here all the way until Illinois. Oh my goodness. I'm thinking next week. The Louisiana border. From here. So all through South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi look identical. I mean, like at any point I could have put my head down and picked it up and be like, oh, we're in South Carolina. Like the whole way through.
And then you're all highway. So it's just
gosh. I mean, it's fine. It's uneventful. That's good. That's what you want on a long road trip. You can just plug in earbuds and just go.
Just go, yeah.
But it's also
there's nothing to see. Yeah. There's no change of the leaves to see the seasons.
There's no terrain change. There's like a stretch like around Birmingham that gets a little bit hilly.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's flat and it's pine forest.
But y'all made it pretty far, right?
Where did we end up?
Like 12. What y'all do? Like
Shreveport. 12. We ended up in Shreveport, Louisiana.
12, 13 hours?
Yeah, the first day. Yeah. So we ended up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and our first day was pretty uneventful. Knocked out quite a bit. So overall, the drive, the first part of the voyage for us was pretty good, other than just being long and boring.
Right.
So we ended up in Shreveport. McKendrick was in Dallas.
Yep.
Tell us about the first night at your lovely hotel in Dallas.
So similar when we're driving, right? We just make accommodations, especially like for Trey. He's making his accommodations as he's traveling. Once you get tired, okay, let's find a hotel.
Right. We're like, okay, when do I have an hour left?
Yeah.
Like, okay, let me get a point. So like we ended up, I don't know where we were, like Monroe, Louisiana, or something like that. And we're like, okay,
all right, let's start looking.
All right, I got an hour left in me. Yeah. Let's find a spot.
So for me, not traveled, using Spirit before, I was like, well, I'm gonna wait until I, make sure everything works out the way that
you didn't want to get stuck in Fort Lauderdale after having booked a hotel.
Exactly.
Right.
So I didn't book the hotel until late. Actually, was in Fort Lauderdale waiting until confirmation that everything was a go, until I started looking for hotels. And, looking last minute, sometimes hotel rates can be higher. So I was like, okay, let me just find something that is close in between the venue and the airport, pretty reasonable. I mean, I was only staying there for just that one night, and we already had the Hilton booked for the rest of the weekend. So I was like, all right, I'll just go ahead and, find something, pretty reasonable, which is what I did. So, looking online, and there's so many websites now that give discounts. I found one called not Travelocity. It was like Travel Lure City. I don't know, something weird. But it gave me a great rate. It was like a 60% off
on a hotel. That starts that sounds like what, Madison
or Gladison. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
You know what we're talking about.
So anyway, I booked it. I showed up. The lobby looked great when I got there. It did say online that the room could accommodate like handicap accessible, but I mean most hotels have rooms that are, and I assume that's why they had discounted it, because they didn't have anyone to book it. So I booked it, and I was like, okay, by the time I got there, it was already late. I was like, I just need a good night's sleep, and then we're off to the venue the next day. So get there, everything looked decent. Get to the room, and as soon as I step in, I'm like, man, I hear an echo when I walk in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, it did not have carpet.
I guess that the handicap accessible part had meant that it was I don't know, but I mean, like, people, correct me if I'm wrong, like, I mean, tell me, but like people in wheelchairs can roll on carpet, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, the lobby had carpet, right?
The lobby had carpet, the sitting area, but I walked in the room. I was like, "Wait,
I don't necessarily know why that's the handicap accessible part."
Me either. So that was quite interesting.
Unless, okay, so tell the part about the shower, and then that might go ahead.
So well, of course, checking out the room. Everything else seemed pretty decent, and then I went into the restroom, and I was like, "Oh, this is different." Shower curtain, shower. Everything normal with the exception of there's like just open space between the entire bathroom. Like there's no transition between the shower and the floor in front of the sink. It's just floor.
Yeah.
Like,
which makes sense.
I get that if you're like, maybe wheelchair to just like, roll in and out. But I was like, oh wow, this is very different. Like I'm sure I've been in.
I think I've had handicap accessible rooms, and
I've never seen it like that.
So like my initial thought from earlier was maybe it's because like if you showered and then you like used your wheelchair to get back to the main room, you didn't want to like have water on the floor, but then you wouldn't shower in your wheelchair.
That's true too.
I don't think that's what it's for. The confusing part for me is, to clarify, is the lack of carpet in the room.
That was
not necessarily the bathroom. I mean, the bathroom I think is more handicap accessible than I have seen in a hotel before or heard about in a hotel before.
Agree,
but not outlandish.
No,
but the lack of like just a concrete floor,
just from bedroom area into the bathroom. It was just like, oh wow, this is very different. But I mean, again, I was only there for a few hours, get a good night's sleep, take a shower, and pretty much went to bed.
Right.
The crazy thing about it was when I woke up the next morning, I was like more in the center of the bed, which was weird because I'm like, man, I sleep like pretty solid in
funneled
one place.
You in.
Yeah, man, it tacoed me.
Tacoed you.
I got tacoed, man.
Yeah.
I was literally like, why is the mattress trying to eat me? Yeah, it was weird. I was like, okay.
You got to stay another night.
I was like, okay, you're trying to get me.
That's funny.
It's not gonna happen. So, but did that. Stayed there, and again, it was fine. It was just one of those weird situations where now would I book it again? Probably not. Won't be going back to that location again. Right. But it was definitely a little bit of an adventure from the time I left Fort Lauderdale and to the time I woke up the next morning.
Right. So that leads us into Friday, which is setup day. So for those that have vended the NARBC shows before, vendor setup and VIPs start on Friday. They say, I think on the website that it starts at noon, but like people start rolling in and they let you start setting up. Like, 10.
So I got there early because I was like, well, Trey will be rolling in, him and Corey. So I was like, well, I'll go there a little bit early, just kind of scouting it out, looking for good parking spots. And by the time I got there, doors are open, vendors are already in, setting up, and this was
11 maybe
before 11.
10:30?
Yeah, probably right about 10:45 ish. Yeah. So I was like, wow, they're already here. So we were actually concerned what were we gonna do?
Yeah, because we ended up we got up early out of Shreveport and got into we stopped in Tyler, Texas to get like supplies, like because we wanted to be ready to start serving coffee right when we got set up. So we had to get water and we had to get milk and stuff like that so that we would be ready to go once we got into the show. So we stopped in Tyler, Texas to get some water and some milk, and then continued on. No, we didn't get the milk until later. We got the milk at Walmart.
We came and dropped off. Start setting up.
We got water. We got water from Lowe's in Tyler, and then kept going. And it wasn't a bad drive. Since we made it like 12, 13 hours, it was only like a 4-hour drive in on Friday. So we got to you right at 11 because I was thinking like, okay, well, let's find somewhere to eat lunch and kill an hour. Yeah. And you were like, nah, let's go.
Let's go. We're here. I got a parking spot saved for you. Let's get unloaded.
Standing in a parking spot so that wheeling us in so that we could get going. So we pulled right up at about 11 o'clock, started unloading, and we were go from there.
Yep. Yeah.
So Friday's setup day. Friday was slower than what I expected from a.
Well, I don't know if we really knew what to expect. Right,
we're used to Tinley. That's kind of like the vision of an NARBC show that we generally expect, or at least judge other shows by.
Which may not be fair.
Which may not. No, absolutely isn't fair. But
that's what we know.
We have to. So from a coffee standpoint, we have to prepare for that, because if I don't have enough coffee for Tinley, and this show is as big as Tinley, then I miss opportunities.
That's true.
Right. It's not necessarily like selling reptiles where I have one of this, and if somebody buys it 10 minutes in the show or 2 days into the show, I still had one, and now I don't have it.
And now you don't have it.
I have 30 pounds of coffee, 40 pounds of coffee, and that's what I brought. And once I finish, whether that's day 1 or day 3, I'm done. And if I end up done on day 1, then I missed. I missed really 2 days of sales, right? So, we kind of have to judge it based off of Tinley for that sense, to know what we bring initially to a new show. If we think it's a reasonable size, like I'm not going to do that for a local small show.
Oh yeah, no,
right.
No.
But like for the bigger shows, I have to judge it based off of that, and then we can scale back down from there. So to me, Friday was each show has its own character. Like each show has its own personality. Each location,
right?
And so this one was less of the VIP Friday crowd.
Well, the other thing though was the gaming convention that happened like right next door, which ended up really having us be at inside the show instead of like in the lobby area.
Yeah, so that was tricky too. Yeah. So they had apparently, because this is our first time vending Arlington, so we didn't know anything. They used to have some space in the lobby that had now been occupied by what was an esports stadium or something like that. Like it was a full on like esports kind of setup where you could play competitive
some
games,
gaming, something.
So we were not in the lobby like we were expecting to be, which I mean it's fine. We still got to think I got a good feel for the venue, but we weren't as visible as what we're used to in some of the other shows.
So and we know like that maximum exposure, it makes a difference. Like when we first did Tinley, we were inside. Then once we got outside, it was a very different ball game.
Right.
Similar in St. Louis, we
started in the lobby, which kind of what triggered that pattern for the rest. I think.
Yeah.
I think both NARBC as the business as well as us like us there. Yeah, because I think it frees up space on the show floor for other people to have booths,
vend,
right, and it puts us, because our main objective is the same as Brian and Bob's, is that ours is gate, right? We need people through the door. It doesn't matter if it's a buying crowd for reptiles or not. We need tickets through the door because we need volume, right? It's cups of coffee that are $5 a piece. You got to have a lot of cups of coffee to make it worth that kind of trip. So it's gate for us, and being in the lobby, being visible, making sure everyone who walks in that building at least has to see us. So,
even if they, I mean, to have to pass by at least puts them in the driver's seat to make a decision. Do I want to get coffee or not? Even like before you go in, because these venues a lot of times are so large, you're making your way up and down aisles, and you may eventually get to us. You will eventually get to us if we're on the inside. But if we were on the outside in the lobby, then you could have got your coffee before you even started.
Well, and even there's aisles within aisles, so you have to go up one side and down the other side.
Correct.
And it's very easy to get turned around or to get skip an aisle or miss an aisle. We have several. I mean, when we're in the main lobby, we've had several people over the years to say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were here. I didn't know you guys were here."
Someone missed us this past weekend.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Several people. Yeah.
So I know saying, "Oh my gosh, I got into the show and got caught up and never came across you guys' table."
Yeah. So it happens. Yeah, and so being in the lobby for us makes it really visible. But back to the recap, it was we were in the main show floor this time, so.
It was good. I mean, it's still a lot of foot traffic our way. Still very busy days. I think Sunday afternoon was okay as well. We started.
I think it was. I think it was okay.
People through.
I mean, it was a pretty solid show all the way through. It wasn't gangbusters, but it wasn't slow. There wasn't any time that I was like, I don't want I want to go home. I want to pack up early or anything like that.
We were
right?
busy enough for sure.
It was busy enough. We did. How many gallons of water did we end up doing?
5, 10, 15. Five gallons each, right?
25 gallons of water, something like that.
Something like that.
Did we do 5 gallons?
Yep.
Yeah. 25 gallons of water, 2 gallons of milk.
Yep. Plus of course, merch bag. Shout out to all those folks who bought one of the barrel aged, the bourbon barrel aged.
You got one more chance. One more chance before it's gone.
Yeah.
So that's Tinley Park. It's not going online. Sorry. So it's a one-time offer. We might do it again. Like, I'm not saying we're not going to do it again.
Go
but
online at some point.
Maybe.
We'll do pre-order type.
Maybe we'll do a pre-order. That's
seasonal pre-order. So I think that'll be a good
It's
idea.
very difficult for us to plan and schedule those, right? Because they're batches, and they're
truly barrel. So just to be clear, like, this is not barrel flavored coffee. Mm-hmm. No, these are true bourbon barrels that we purchased, and we put green coffee in and aged them before roasting. So these are very unique, and several people bought them at the show in Arlington. We'll have them again.
We'll have them. The rest
Tinley.
The rest of what we have will be at Tinley, and once it's gone, this batch, it's gone. It's not something that, like, we put it in the barrel, we wait 30 days, and then we roast it, and then we got to sell it, right? Because we want it fresh roasted and sold. So
and it's only whole bean,
and it's only whole bean because of the aromatics. We want to keep the aromatics as much as possible for that bourbon barrel experience as long as possible. So it's only whole bean, and it's only limited quantities. So come get it at Tinley.
Absolutely. And if we don't sell out at Tinley, for those locally in Charleston, you may special. Hit us up. We may have a few here at the shop that we might be able to sell you once we get back. But fingers crossed that what we have left, we'll get rid of all of those at Tinley Park in a couple weeks. So pretty excited about that.
Not a couple weeks, buddy. 1 week from today.
What's today? Tuesday?
Yeah, well, 1 week and 1 day. How's that? I'll give you an extra day.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so other than that, I mean, the trip was overall pretty good. I would still call it a success.
Well,
what?
What I mean, we haven't gotten to the return journey yet.
Yeah. I mean, I was still
you're still
in the meat and potatoes. We're there. We sold coffee.
No, the show was great. The show was great. It's always great seeing people. It's always great meeting new people. Like, the number of times, like, oh my gosh, I didn't, like, is this your first time here? And like, we love that you're here. The reception was just tremendous. Like, we appreciate all the new people that came and said hey and all that stuff. So that was a blast, and we really do. It was a great show. It was a great customer base. Really fun show. So we're going to be back. I think, from my understanding, that's the last show at that venue.
Yeah, they made an announcment while we were there. I think it's going to move. So
they're going to move
different.
Close. I think it's closer into Dallas. So I know we're going to do the next one. And because we always like to do 2 shows before we make a decision of like if we continue to do, because it's nothing against the show. We just have to make sure that it's profitable for the business, right?
Right.
And again, we're talking about having to sell hundreds, if not 1,000 cups of coffee in a weekend in order to break even with some of these bigger shows.
And then when the venues themselves, if they have concessions and they have coffee,
that eats into our profits as well, because we have to pay the gate, right? We have to buy them out, their concessions out. So we don't have to do that at Tinley. And so that helps us.
That helps a lot.
And hopefully we won't have to at this new venue. We did have to do it this time.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So we're all that considered, we will definitely be back for the next Dallas show, and at least give that new venue a try.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's nothing against, like, it's just, that's an expensive trip for us to take with 3 people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we need 3 people to do it.
3 people is kind of that sweet spot
for this size of a show. Yeah.
So we're excited.
So we'll be back in Dallas. I think it's in April. I think they're moving it from February to April and closer into Dallas. So we'll see you guys in Dallas, for those that we met in Arlington in April. But so we wrapped up on Sunday, and then everything went smooth with load out.
Yep, and so you left. So after packing
like
up,
5 o'clock or so, we were out the door.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock
was the
show
end of the
ends.
show.
Yep.
We packed up. We were rolling probably around 4:45.
Yep. Took you back to the hotel and then bounced.
Yep.
Right,
and they got directly on the road, which is normal. What we do anyway, right? Get a few hours in on that Sunday. evening.
Our goal is always like 3 to 5 hours, depending on how far we are out. Get a chunk of it back,
and then get up the next
morning. Yeah.
So I was at the hotel that night,
just relaxing, hanging.
Yeah, tried to watch some football, fell asleep. It was a long day making cups of coffee, so I kind of crashed that night. Had to get up early the next morning, but y'all made your way on up the road.
We started on our way out of Dallas, and we were sabotaged by Bucky.
So I was a little bit, jealous because I did not get to experience Bucky's in Texas.
I think Bucky got mad at me.
He probably got mad.
So I like Bucky. Okay, I like everything about it. I like the grandeur. I love the fantasism or like whatever, the fanatic, obsession with this. I love it. I
complimented someone on their Bucky shirt.
And they were like,
very
happy.
Oh my gosh, yes, I got like 12 of them. I was like, oh, okay.
No, I love the capitalism at work, like you saw an opportunity and you seized it. And
got it.
I love it. But there were 2 Buckies on our journey, which was a little disappointing. I will have to say, corporate Buckies, if you're listening, I know you listen to this podcast, okay? Corporate Buckies, you need to have more Buckies in Texas before you get to Dallas. There's only one, and that is a crying shame. But Buckies. So there is a Buckies in Alabama, and there is pretty soon, I think, after you get into Alabama from the Georgia side. I can't remember the name of the town that it's in.
I have no idea.
But no, it's Leeds, I think, Alabama. I know a lot about
probably
Bucky's.
Wrong. He's probably wrong.
I know a lot about Bucky's. And we stopped at that one on the way. So on the way in, we stopped at the Leeds, Alabama Bucky's.
On the way back,
but we did not stop at the Terrell, Texas, Bucky's, right? Because it was like an hour and a half from the venue. So we had gotten up early Friday morning.
Right.
We had started going. We didn't want to waste time gallivanting at Bucky's, and so we just skipped Terrell, Texas, Bucky's, and came straight into the show. I think that's what got me. That I missed the first Texas Bucky's of my life, and Bucky's jinxed me because on the way back, we stopped at the Terrell, Texas Bucky's, and as soon as we got back in the car, everything had been working fine up until that point. We got back in the van, turned it on, and it was blowing hot air. Now, mind you, that it is, I don't know, a hellscape in Texas.
It was reasonable. It was reasonably hot.
At the end of September, it was like, I have to admit that I've always kind of like scoffed at people from Texas who are like, oh my gosh, it's so hot here. And I'm like, it's hot everywhere in the South. Like, get real. No, it's hot. Like it is magnificently hot in Texas. Like it was 99 degrees on Saturday in Texas, in Arlington. And
pretty close to that on Sunday,
it was like
too.
September. It was like what, 26th,
the end of September. Yeah,
you're like, oh my goodness, what was it in July?
Right.
So I say all that to say that when it started blowing hot air at 5 o'clock, it was still 95 degrees outside. And we had to drive. So I didn't know what was going on at the time. I'm not, like, full transparency, not a car guy. I know enough to like be like, that ain't right. But I don't know enough to be like, I can fix it.
Like to to lift the hood up and say, all right, I think I can,
I can diagnose this and figure out. No, that's not me. That's not me. So I do know some things about air conditioning compressors and the belts that run them, because on the way to Tinley, the first time when you flew and I drove the truck, the air conditioning compressor seized up, and it actually in the Toyota Tundras, it's the same belt that runs the power steering as well as the as well as the air conditioning compressor, and that belt popped because I kept trying to run the AC, and it, even though it wasn't working, and that belt seized up, frayed the belt and then popped it, and I didn't have power steering in the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina. That was a blast. So
but
this time I was like, oh no, it's doing it again. And so I turned off the AC altogether. I looked at it and I opened the hood and I didn't see any like frayed belts or anything. So I assumed that it wasn't the same like issue.
Right.
Or at least this wasn't the same like system. The serpentine belt system didn't run all of the components of the engine like the one in the Tundra did.
Right.
But I still was really, really nervous. And so we didn't
turned off
the AC and ran with the windows cracked all night on Sunday night. And it
had to be a
so
miserable.
Hot. It was so hot.
That was like from what, 6 o'clock until y'all didn't stop riding until like 1
a.m. Yeah, because I mean, well, it was like it's progressively getting cooler,
right?
So I didn't want to stop.
So you were trying to take advantage of the cool time after the sun went down and just keep driving.
So we drove until 1 a.m. And so that we ended up in Meridian, Mississippi. We stopped at a hotel in Meridian, Mississippi, and we were like, maybe we should like in the morning just get it looked at so we know what the issue is. Like maybe there's a button, like a reset button. I don't know. I'm not a car guy. Maybe it'll just unfreeze itself after the.
So optimistic.
I was like, come
please
on,
let it be simple. Maybe it's just a little fuse that just needs to be replaced.
So I was like, okay, well, yeah. So we were like, okay, let's get up in the morning and let's find a mechanic before we hit the road. And as luck would have it, there was literally a mechanic in the parking lot of the hotel,
right across the street. Right.
It made sense that we would stop there, and get it checked out. So, long story short, it was the compressor. I mean, there was nothing they can do. They looked at it, they did the diagnosis. Very nice folks. Didn't charge us anything for it, but whatever. It was the compressor, so we ended up having to drive the rest of the way back on yesterday, without the AC.
Just windows going up, windows going down.
Now the mean GPS lady that usually yells at me for making wrong turns was nice to us. She did bypass us around Columbia. So it took us off in Aiken.
Oh, okay.
Of 20, and it bypassed Columbia because of rush hour traffic. So we came through like Nice's and Orangeburg.
Gotcha.
And we could put the windows all the way down. That feeling, like I don't know if you've ever ridden without AC for an extended period of time and just had like put the windows down, and it was just like this rush of cool air. It wasn't cold. It wasn't cool. Okay, it was like 84 degrees, but I mean it was not 95 degrees in Texas.
But it wasn't bad though.
It was actually blowing. It wasn't just like an 18-wheeler's exhaust in your face.
It was comforting.
It was comforting. It was so nice. Well, and I like sweated through 3 layers of like you probably need to get those seats checked. I mean, like I'm gonna be real. Like it's probably not good.
Oh my gosh!
So we because we got to go back to Chicago in a week, and we might need to like Febreze or like do a Arm & Hammer bomb or something in there.
We'll get that checked out.
Get that checked out.
Oh man!
But yeah, so it wasn't the greatest return. We got to get the compressor fixed in less than a week so that we're ready to go back to Chicago.
But the interesting thing is, you got back before I did.
I did get back before you. Yeah,
I tell you, man. Yeah. So Spirit on the way back.
But no, hang on though. Oh, you didn't leave until Monday morning.
Yeah,
right?
But I had to be at the airport
so total travel time. Trey still wins or loses.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard.
This is true.
It's kind of hard.
But I was up at 5 a.m.
without AC.
5 a.m. on Monday morning, headed to the airport so I can catch a 7 o'clock flight. Actually, 7:30 flight, I think it was, which was uneventful. Same folding chair seats that we had on the way in.
You said those were better, though, didn't you?
No, the ones from Fort Lauderdale into Charleston were better, but the ones for the long flight over 3 hours were the same chairs. But and it was supposed to be a much faster flight. But
keyword supposed to be.
What happened? Delays. multiple delays, gate changes throughout the airport. So I'm literally bouncing from just concourse to concourse, trying to make sure I'm at the right gate at the right time. The agent at the desk kept saying, "Oh, you had a gate change. You're now at G19. Oh, but wait. Your flight is still delayed. You're just going to be delayed.
Move. Just move your butt over there.
From a different gate."
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that's clear. I was like, "Oh, great, thanks. I won't be in any hurry to get there since it's still another 2 to 3 hour delay." So by the time I landed back in Charleston, Trey called and he was already back at the office.
Yeah.
I was like, "You've got to be kidding me."
So it was almost a 12-hour day. 13-hour day because of the time change for you as well.
Yeah, probably a little bit. I mean, I was up at 5 a.m. Yeah. I didn't get back and land until what time was that? Like
it was 7:30.
7:30. Yeah. So I was literally in the car headed home when Trey called.
We actually kind of got back at the same time.
Right.
Arrived at our destination at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah. So eventful return for both of us. Uneventful journey for me on the first half. Overall, a really good trip, and I think we met a lot of people. It was a good experience, but travel arrangements will be adjusted going forward
as best we can.
I will soon be the proud owner of a new AC compressor with 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty.
We get the Rolls Royce of compressors.
So that thing
better last.
At least for the next 2 years, we should be pretty good. So yeah, that is really all that there is to talk about this week. I think.
It was a good time. Like I said, the fun was all in the travel.
Yeah.
Or not so much fun.
Yeah.
But always great meeting new people at the shows. I mean, we connected with folks.
That's why we do it. I mean, that like I mentioned, I mean, it's okay. So the goal is to make some money, but it's to meet and network and market and all that kind of stuff.
That's what it's all about.
And we really do. I say it. I've said it before on this podcast, and I really do enjoy meeting and talking to people about coffee and reptiles. So come see us in 1 week and 1 day. We'll be at the Gecko Symposium at the ahead of the NARBC Tinley Park, and then so that's going to be Thursday, and then next Thursday, and then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday we will be at NARBC Tinley Park. So check us out there. We will be in the lobby, I hope.
You got to start using dates.
I don't know when it is. October 5th.
I don't know either. You said next Thursday, so people are going to be listening.
October 5th-ish, if that's a Thursday. Check that out. We're going to fact check that. Hang on just a second.
Go ahead and confirm.
Please hold.
We will be in Tinley Park on, drum roll, please. We need to put a drum roll thing in here. October
5th. I was right.
5th.
I was right. Yeah. Okay, so cool. So October 5th, 2023.
Because there's going to be people, listen to us.
So come see us in RBC, Tinley Park, Gecko Symposium, and then Tinley Park next week, October 5th through the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe something like that.
Way too many days. Way too many
Whatever.
days. We'll just leave
Thursday
it there.
through Sunday.
We'll
be there. We'll be hanging out. So come see us. And I think that's it for this episode. So let's close it out with the outro music. This has been another Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast. Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcasts are sponsored by Cold Blooded Caffeine, your source for specialty roasted coffee with a wildlife conservation mindset. Also sponsored by the Coffee Run, coffee delivery service. Locally owned and operated, the Coffee Run serves coffee and coffee-related products to offices and businesses throughout the low country of South Carolina. Contact us today at coffeerundelivery.com.
Hey, you're getting pretty good at this.
Was that good? All right. We'll see you next time on the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast.
We're out.